Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Suranandana Brajajana Ranjano Jasoranandana Brajajana Ranjano Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Oh, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jasoranandana Prajajana Ranjana Jasoranandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Radha Madhava ki, Sri Radha Giridhari ki jai, srimadbhagavatam ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramhamsa Parivraj ki jai, jai Shodhara Shri Madhava Jai Savai Charana Aravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, jai Om Vishnupada Paramhamsa Parivraj ki jai, jai Shodhara Shri Madhava is divine grace, the Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories, Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. So this morning we'll be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 22nd chapter, 22nd verse. After that we'll read about the final pastimes of Ramanujacharya. Today's his disappearance day. a little about Ramanujacharya, great Vaishnavacharya in the Sri Sampadaya. So, today's verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Variyadayat Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sashrantaya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Gigyasaya Dhyatmika Yoga Nishtaya Yogeshwaro Pasanaya Cha Nityam Punyashrava Kataya Punaya Cha Sasradhaya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Gigyashaya Dhyatmika Yoga Nishtaya Yogeshwaro Pasanaya Cha Nityam Punyashrava Kataya Punyaya Cha Sashrantaya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Gigashaya Dhyatmika Yoga Nishtaya Yogeshwaro Pasanaya Cha Nityam Punyashrava Kataya Punyaya Cha. You would like to chant? Sa Shradhaya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Gigyasaya Dhyatmika Yoga Nishtaya Yogeshwara Pasanaya Cha Nityam Punyashrava Kataya Punyaya Cha. Sashraya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Ladies. Sashraya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Yasaya Dhyatmika Yoga Nishtaya Yogeshwaro Pasanaya Cha Nityam Punyashrava Kataya Punyaya Cha. Synonym: Sa, that devotional service. Shraddhaya, with faith and conviction. Bhagavad Dharma, devotional service. Charyaya, by discussion. Gigashaya, by inquiry. Adhyatmika, spiritual. Yoga Nishtaya, by conviction and spiritual understanding. Yoga Ishvara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Upasanaya, by worship of Him. Cha, and Nityam, regularly. Punyashava, by hearing which. Kataya, by discussion. Punyaya, by pious. Cha, also. Translation. Attachment for the Supreme can be increased by practicing devotional service, inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, applying Bhakti Yoga in life, worshipping the Yogeshwara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in themselves. Purport. The word Yogeshwara is applicable both to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and his devotees also. In Bhagavad Gita, this word occurs in two places. In the 18th chapter, 1878, Krishna is described. You know what verse that is of the Bhagavad Gita? Yeah. It's the last one. Yeah. This is it. The last verse of the Bhagavad Gita. This is all last statement about this Yogeshwara. Krishna is described as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the master of all mystic power. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna. Wherever there's Krishna, the master of all mystic power, and Arjuna, supreme archer, there will always be victory and morality and all these success and so on. That's the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. Yogeshwara is also described at the end of the 6th chapter, 647, Same yuktatamo mataha. This yuktatama indicates the topmost of all yogis, the devotees, who can also be called Yogeshwara. In this verse, Yogeshwara upasana means to render service to a pure devotee. Thus, Nartam Das Thakur says, Chadiya Vaishnav Seva Nishtara Payeche Kibha. Without serving a pure devotee, one cannot advance in spiritual life. Prahlad Maharaj also has said, Naisham Matistavad Uru Kraman Grim Sprishat Yanartha Pagamo Yadartaha Bahiyam Sam Padarajo Bhishekam Dishkinchananam Na Brnitayavat. One should take shelter of a pure devotee who has nothing to do with this material world but is simply engaged in devotional service. By serving him only, one can transcend the qualitative material condition. In this verse, it is recommended, Yogeshwara Upasanaya, that one serve the lotus feet of the topmost yogi or the devotee. To serve the topmost devotee means to hear from him about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the mouth of a pure devotee is to acquire a pious life. In Bhagavad Gita 7:20, it is also said that without being pious, one cannot engage in devotional service. Yesham tontarkam papam janana punyakarmana te dvandamoha nirmukta bhajante mam dridha brataha. To become fixed in devotional service, one has to be completely cleansed from the contamination of the material modes of nature. For work in devotional service, the first item is adau Guruvashrayam. One should accept a bona fide spiritual master, and from the bona fide spiritual master inquire about one's transcendental occupational duties, sadharma pricha, and follow in the footsteps of great saintly persons, devotees, sadhu marga anugamanam. These are the instructions given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami. The conclusion is that to increase attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to accept a bona fide spiritual master and learn from him the methods of devotional service and hear from him about the transcendental message and glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this way, one has to increase his conviction about devotional service. Then it will be very easy to increase attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Agyan Dimarandasya Garanjana Salakaya Chakshurun Minitam Nena Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashri Gaur Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchikapatarubhasya kripa sindhu bhevacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namah. So with your good wishes and a few blessings, I'll say something. Thank you. Okay. This is a continuation of the previous verse, because in the previous verse it said that as absolutely conclusive, absolutely, without from the scriptures, from every single angle, that detachment from this material world and attachment to the Supreme Lord is the perfection of life and the ultimate goal for human beings. So now it's saying, well, how do you increase that attachment for the Supreme Lord? You know? So the advice was given, well, where do you get it? You know? So, and it's saying that attachment for the Supreme Lord can be increased by practicing the devotional service, which is referred to here. Most important thing here is inquiring about the Supreme Lord and applying bhakti yoga in life, worshiping Yogeshwara, hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, in the previous purport, and this is being stressed over and over again, this hearing about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and chanting those glories and inquiring about devotional service. When Srila Prabhupada arrived in the Jaladuta, looking at the unattractive Boston skyline, especially back in those days, looks much nicer in the sense of newer buildings and so on. Back in the 60s and 70s, that skyline wasn't so nice. There wasn't much there. Yeah, south of Boston. Like that. I was in Boston in the early 70s with the Hare Krishnas. Like that. So that's when the John Hancock building was being... How old were you then? 15. They robbed me from a cradle. Right in the middle of the night. My parents had no idea where I went. They just smelled some incense in the bedroom. Hare Krishna's got me. So anyways, that's when they built the John Hancock building. That big, it's one of the tallest buildings in New England. But of course, it's an interesting fact that building, they built it. Huge building, big glass windows. And the glass windows kept popping out and falling on people below on the street. So they had to work on that one. The engineer got fired, I guess. Yeah, it's insurance. Hope they got insurance. The John Hancock building. But now they've built up so much more in the last 40, 50 years. But Prabhupada was there on the Jaladuta, that skyline, and of course the famous prayer is there, and Bhagavad Dharma. And how in the world can these people in a place like this ever become Krishna conscious? And the conclusion in that prayer was the message of the Bhagavatam. If they can just have some oral reception. Interesting way to say hearing, isn't it? Oral reception. So here it comes, receive it, oral reception. They can just hear the message, the pure message of the Bhagavatam. Submissive oral reception. So it's so powerful that there's a change in the heart. Hridayanto. And then the heart becomes changed. It's just by sound vibration. That's the power of transcendental sound vibration. That's why hearing and chanting is always stressed. I think it was Bhavananda Prabhupada told him, he asked Prabhupada about being a manager, so many duties and things you have to do, and devotees got to do this and that and that. And he told him, he said, well, what you have to make sure is devotees always have an opportunity for hearing and chanting. That's extremely important. But you always have to make sure devotees are always hearing and chanting. And that's where the power comes from, the potency comes from, the purity comes from, the enlivenment comes from. So, and we can see that in our daily schedule. You got the morning, what? You know what ISKCON sandwich is? You ever hear of an ISKCON sandwich? Here it is in SanDiego. It's a burrito. But the ISKCON sandwich was the morning program and the evening program on top. Right? So, because you begin the day and you end the day with hearing and chanting. That's built in. So, very, very important. Throughout the day we may have so many duties, and many of us it may not be direct hearing and chanting. So much work and have to do it, like Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said later on in the day, banking. Right? Prabhupada said that. You got work to do for Krishna. So Not everyone can engage directly in hearing and chanting throughout the day. But there's got to be built into our daily life this hearing and chanting, so take advantage of the morning and evening program as a religious principle. Prabhupada set it up that way. So, and as Yogeshwara, Prabhupada says, refers both to Krishna and the devotees. Topmost yogi is devotees. Interesting. And it must be from one of the commentaries that it shifts the whole thing, because in the verse in the Sanskrit, it's definitely referring to Bhagavan, right? But in the purport, yeah, he's saying, quoting Narottam Das Thakur, quoting Prahlad Maharaj, all the great acharyas, they're saying the same thing, serving the devotees. And what does it mean to serve the devotees? Prabhupada's stressing that means to hear from them. You have to hear from them. Devotees are the mouthpiece of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're preachers, like that. They're speaking, like that. So that's the greatest gift. So you want to serve the devotee, you hear from the devotee. What's the devotee's service? Is to deliver the fallen souls. Not that we're think of ourselves as, great sadhus, but we're delivering the message, like delivering the, But that's what devotees do. So the service to devotees is to hear from them. Like that. Service, just like you go to a classroom. Remember those days? Oh, no time ago. You go to a classroom. What's your service? Oh, you can bring the teacher an apple if you like. But really, what's the service? To listen to the teacher. That's the seva. Right? And if you don't, you get in trouble. That's it, because you're in the presence of a teacher. So that's what you do. So in the presence of the great devotees, it's always the hearing. Why do you go to see a great devotee? See what kind of dhoti they wear? Or sari? Wow. No, not to check out the sacred threads. It's to hear. Right? When devotees come, we invite so many devotees to come. It's a big thing is, where are they speaking tonight? Right? The schedule's there. What program are they at? Are they giving morning class? They're giving the Sunday feast? They're at so-and-so's house, this program, that everyone wants to come and hear. That's the seva of the great devotees, because by hearing from them, and inquiring submissively. So many questions we have, because it says here, just look at the very end of the purport, it said about understanding. Right? Is that what the purport said here? Conclusion. Easy to increase attachment. One has his conviction. In this way, one has to increase his conviction about devotional service. So, how do you increase your conviction about anything? It's about hearing about it, and inquiring and thinking it over. And does it make sense to you? Any doubts you have, right? Eliminate any doubts you have about. Then you're convinced, right? If you're not convinced about something, you have some doubts about it, like that. Just like Ramapati is the best Bengali cook we have here. If anyone's not convinced about that, well, the prasadam you just honored, then you have no more doubts, right? So it's easy. So there's ways to get rid of our doubts, and then as far as the process of devotional service, it's hearing and inquiring submissively. So that's the seva that's being referred to in this verse. And Prahlad Maharaj, this famous verse about smearing the dust, this Raja Abhishekam, the dust from the feet of a devotee, like that. Now, in itself, that is very spiritually potent, right? The dust from the feet of a devotee. In fact, there's three things, if you can get, Chaitanya Charitamrita, three things if you can get from a pure devotee, very, very potent and helpful in your devotional service. So one of them is the dust from the feet. What's another one? Water that's washed the feet. And what's the last one? Because this is the pastime of the devotee hiding outside the mango pits. Right, the remnants of food from their plate. These things are very, very powerful, But the most powerful thing is hearing. Hearing. It was in the previous chapters about the saffron mercy particles. Krishna's feet or Prithu Maharaj, right? Yeah. It's all mixed in there. How powerful it is. That sound is not an ordinary sound. Golokera Premadan Harinam Sankirtan. It's imported from the spiritual world. It's an import. It has nothing to do with this material world. Purna Shuddha Nityamukto Vina Tvam Nami Nami No. The name of Krishna is Purnam, complete. Purnam. What's the next thing? What did I just say? Shuddha, completely pure. Nityamukto, completely liberated. And Binatvam Nami Nami No. There's no difference between the name and Krishna. So this transcendental sound vibration has a very, very powerful effect. And that's the devotees are carrying that sound and distributing that sound. So, and it says also here about the very last line about just hearing and chanting is pious in itself. Punya kirtana shravana. And then Prabhupada quotes this verse, Yesham Twantakatam Papam. That one really has to become freed from papa, sinful reactions, in order to fully take up devotional service. This bhajante mam dridha brataha, dridhavata, with great determination, devotional service. In other words, there's an impediment. Something slows us down, like an anchor. You know, you're pulling your anchor, just like... Or you ever leave your brake on in your car just a little bit? Are you laughing because you did it? Okay. You know, pull up the brake, you think, why is it going a little slow here? Uh-oh. You know, you just burned out your emergency brake, you know, you just like that. Uh-oh. So it's slow going if the brake's not all the way disengaged. So what are the brakes? This residual of previous papa, like that. There are material attachments and sinful reactions and all that whole baggage that kind of we carry with us. So I don't know if that's cleared away, then bhajante mam dridhabhata. Krishna says you can engage in devotional service with firm determination without any drag. And that's what the word is, drag? Like that, a drag. Is that why they call that drag racing? Because the parachute at the end? Okay, you know, it's drag racing and then they let the parachute go, slows them down. That must be why. Slows them down. So it's a nautical term also, drag, when you're sailing and so on. Anyway, so we want to have no drag, nothing slowing us down in our devotional service. So it says by engaging in the process, many, many lifetimes, gradually, all this moha, te dvandva moha, all this delusion, illusion, all it just goes away. And then it's a clear sailing like that. So, any questions or comments? Because I want to read a little bit about Srila Ramanujacharya's disappearance. It's quite enlivening. Question? There's a microphone there. You're being broadcast all the way around the world. So choose your words carefully.
When I first read that, what you just said, that Srila Prabhupada said, we're going to teach you by oral reception, I was sitting in that apartment in Grand Avenue, and I thought Prabhupada meant, we're just going to teach you from the other side where we're all at, where all the devotees are. We're just going to teach you from there. And I didn't know it meant hearing. And I was sitting there in the kitchen, just shocked out of my mind, and I said, they're going to teach us from the other side. That's it. All right, Paul.
Well, it's something like that. They are on the other side. They're fully Krishna conscious. And through sound, we also go there. Any other questions or comments on this verse about serving the pure devotees in oral reception, hearing and chanting, being the way to increase our attachment? So in our more sane moments, if we're thinking, I really like to be more attached to Krishna, here's the answer. By increasing our hearing and chanting, that's where it comes from. That's it.
Comment. I forget the purport it's in, but it's in the first canto, I believe. Prabhupada says the first qualification for going back to Godhead is the eagerness to hear about Krishna.
Yeah.
So we have to cultivate that.
Yeah. Okay. Now we'll hear about one of the great acharyas. And there's also his final instructions. So in the mood of hearing from great souls, we'll also read that. This is taken from Naimisharanya Dasa's biography. Naimi, as we used to call him, in Three Rivers. I served with him for a while up there. He ran the Gurukula. So, here it is. This is the marker. a few minutes. So there are four bona fide Vaishnava Sampradayas. Ours is the Brahma Sampradaya, coming from Lord Brahma. There's one coming from Lord Shiva. It's called the Rudra Sampradaya. And there's one coming from the four Kumaras we're reading about. That's the Nimbarka or Kumara Sampradaya. And then there's one coming from Lakshmi, goddess of fortune. That's the Sri Sampradaya. And Ramanujacharya is the, you could say in recent times, or history, the great Acharya in that line. Like that. So, let's see here. Instructions. No, a lot of time. Okay. Before I read it, see where it says. Okay, later on they'll say when he appeared and how old he was. But here's a point here. When they learned, this is Ramanujacharya, obviously in the latter part of his life. When they learned that Ramanujacharya was going to leave them and return to Sri Rangam, he was at one place. Was it Sri Shaila maybe? Oh, Yadavari. Yadavadri. You go there. Very nice. The place there. All the devotees and Yadavadri were very unhappy at the prospect of their imminent separation. When they presented their distress before him, Yatiraj, that's Ramanujacharya, gave permission for a stone murti of himself to be made. When it was completed, he said to them, when you are feeling sorrow because of separation from me, all of you come before this murti. By contemplating this form here, your unhappiness will be removed. At about the same time, the devotees of Bhuttapuri, Ramanuja's birthplace, also made an image of their guru and installed it in the temple according to the proper Vedic rituals. When he heard about this, Yatiraj shed tears and said, the people of Bhuttapuri have made me their captive by the love and devotion they unceasingly offered to me. Preaching in Sri Rangam. However, the most fortunate of all were the devotees of Sri Rangam, for they were able to see Yatiraj constantly and listen every day to his discourses on the glories of Lord Narayan. From miles around, people came to see the great Acharya and on his order took up the path of devotional service. For many more years, Ramanuja continued to reside in the holy city of Sri Rangam until he was 120 years old. During his life, he established 74 centers for the Sri Vaishnavas and had many thousands of followers, including several kings and many wealthy landowners. Apart from the householders, he numbered amongst his followers 700 sannyasis, 12,000 brahmacharis. Send a few this way. We could use a few here. 12,000 brahmacharis and 300 keti amais. Keti mais, ladies who had taken a vow of renunciation. Eventually, seeing that his mission on earth was now completed, he decided to give up his frail body and return to the abode of the Lord. Seeing their spiritual master becoming fixed in a mood of intense devotion, many of Yatiraj's disciples were overcome and began to lament loudly. Final instructions. On hearing their cries, Ramanujacharya came out of his trance and said to his disciples, so he's in trance, and they're all wailing, so he comes out of his trance. My dear children, why do you cry out of lamentation like uneducated men? Do you think this body can endure forever? Am I not fixed in your hearts for all time? Therefore give up this useless wailing and understand the will of the Lord. To this his disciples all replied, O Master, as always your instructions are perfect. Nonetheless, it is impossible for us to bear the pain of separation, which must surely overwhelm us if you leave us now. Out of pity for your children, we beg you to remain with us some more time. In response to this request, Ramanuja agreed to stay with them for 3 more days. He ordered that all of his disciples should come there, and when they were assembled, he delivered his final instructions. Again, instructions, you hear from the great devotees. So these are his final instructions. Worship all Vaishnavas as you worship your Guru. He told them. I guess we make a t-shirt like that. Probably sell that, Rath Yantra. That's a good one. Have faith in the previous acharyas and never be controlled by the senses. Never be satisfied simply by worldly knowledge. Study the scriptures which describe the glories of the Supreme Lord. Transcendental knowledge can overcome the pushings of the mind and senses. Be indifferent to the promptings of the mind. Always relish the chanting of the holy name and qualities of the Lord. The best way to serve the Lord is rendering service to his devotees. Never follow the ways of a Vaishnava for material gain. Always endeavor for purity. Every day spend time in contemplating the greatness of the spiritual master, and every day study the teachings of the Vaishnavacharyas. Always associate with those who are surrendered to the Lord. Avoid those who teach paths other than devotional service and those interested in sensual pleasures. One who sees the deity as stone, the Guru as an ordinary man, the devotees in terms of caste or bodily designation, Charanamrita as ordinary water and yogurt we would say here, the holy name of the Lord as a mundane sound vibration, or the Supreme Lord as one of the demigods, is certainly destined for hellish life. When Yatiraj had finished speaking, the disciples questioned him further, asking how they should conduct themselves while in this world. So just like in the purport today, it said you hear from the spiritual master, great devotees, and inquire from them. So they're making an inquiry. How to conduct themselves while in this material world. Again, Ramanujacharya instructed them, one who has surrendered to Lord Narayan should not be concerned about his future. Depending always on the Lord's mercy, all duties should be performed as acts of devotion to the Lord and never for material gain. Study the Sri Bhasya and teach it to others. The Sri Bhasya. That's his commentary, right, on the Vedanta Sutra, the Sri Bhasya. If this is not possible, then study the teachings of other devotees and then instruct some disciples. If you are unable to do this, then go to a holy place and reside there, or go to Yadavadri and serve the Lord there. If you cannot do this, then remain where you are and surrender to your Guru and meditate on the Vaishnava mantras. If all of these are impossible, then simply seek out a pure-hearted Vaishnava and associate with him constantly. So there's always something you can do. Discriminate carefully between friends and enemies and those who are indifferent. Those who are Vaishnavas will be your friends. The atheists and blasphemers will despise and hate you. And the worldly men will be indifferent. Those aren't Krishna. Right? They'll be indifferent. Associate joyfully with the devotees. Rigorously avoid the blasphemers and never be disturbed by the materialistic plans of worldly men. Never flatter princes and worldly men seeking to earn your livelihood thereby. Remember that the Supreme Lord always takes care of those who are surrendered to him. Take shelter of him and have faith in him alone. If you follow these instructions, then you will never be separated from me. Why should one grieve over the disappearance of the temporary body? Disappearance of Ramanujacharya. When Ramanuja had finished speaking, Dasarati, Govinda, Andrapurna, and some of the other leading disciples came forward and made this presentation to him. Your body, which is ever engaged in this Dasarati. Yeah. Dasarati, yeah. Dasarath. But there's one pastime where there was a... Dasarath, yes, his father. But this pastime is he had to disciple a woman who spent all of her time carrying this water. It was very, very difficult. And she asked to see him, and he said, yeah, there's this Brahmin here. He'll go and take care of all that kind of stuff, carrying the water and cooking and all that. But it was Dasarati. So anyways, the pastime goes, he was at the well one day collecting water, and some big scholar came, like a Mayavadi or something, to get water also, and they gave an instruction, and he was defeated by Dasa. The man said, "How is this possible? Some kitchen help who's getting water at the well has defeated me, you know?" Then all the boys, they said actually who he was. And then I said, "What are you doing here?" I forget, either he said that or someone said, what are you doing? You're one of the great disciples of Ramanujacharya. He said, "Well, my Guru Maharaj told me to accept this humble service to help this other devotee." So even though he was one of the greatest scholars in Ramanujacharya's movement, he took a very humble position. His spiritual master asked him to bring water every day to this other devotee and help out with the cooking. So it's a pastime about his humility. So anyways, they came forward and made this presentation to him. "Your body, which is ever engaged in the service of the Lord, can never be material. Our bodies are certainly temporary, but you exist only on the platform of spiritual life. Therefore, our request is that we never be deprived of the sight of your transcendental form." Taking pity upon them, Ramanuja accepted his disciples' request and ordered that expert sculptors be brought there to carve a stone deity in his likeness. After 3 days, the work was complete. Then the deity was bathed with water from the Kaveri and installed upon a newly constructed altar. Yatiraj then came slowly up to the deity and filled it with his potency by breathing into the crown of the head. Turning to his disciples, he said, "This is my second self. When I cast off this body, you may worship this form instead of me." Then he lay down with his head on Govinda's lap and his feet on the lap of Annapurna. In this position, with his eyes fixed on the wooden shoes of his own spiritual master, Ramanujacharya gave up his body and returned to the abode of Vishnu. It was noontime on the 10th day of the bright moon fortnight in the month of Magh in the year 1059 of the Shaka era, 1137 AD. That gives you an idea when he lived, 1137 AD. A few days later, Govinda, Ramanuja's cousin and lifelong companion, also departed from this world. The other devotees remained under the leadership of Sri Parashara Bhatta, the son of Kuresh, always endeavoring to follow their spiritual master's footsteps by constantly serving Lord Narayan. By serious practice of devotional service, they were able to feel Ramanuja's presence within their hearts. Thus, their intense feelings of separation were mitigated. Parashara continued the mission of Ramanujacharya by strongly preaching the doctrines of Vaishnavism. In a great debate, he overcame Vedantin Madhavadas, the leader of the impersonalist scholars, and made him into a devotee. Years later, after the disappearance of Parashara, the same Madhavadas became the Acharya of the Sri Vaishnavas. So, Sri Ramanujacharya ki jai. Very blissful. Ram, son of, okay, Dashavatha. So we can end here, right? Unless there's any other pastimes of Ramanujacharya you want to discuss, or...
Oh yeah, the thing with Quraysh, I read in the book, I remember, it's stuck in my mind. There was a lot of battle between the followers of Shiva and Ramanuja. And the Shaivites were pretty militant, let's put it that way. And they came and they wanted to disable Ramanuja. And but they didn't know exactly what he looked like. You know, no internet, no pictures or anything. So his disciple Quraysh, he dressed up as
He's a householder.
Yeah, yeah. Right. He's dressed up as sannyasi, and they thought it was him until they arrested him and they blinded him. And so Quraysh was, famous for having given, the sight for his guru, and Ramanuja went on, and I don't remember what happened with the Shaivites, but they got out of the picture. But he's just blind for years. So one time, Ramanuja, much later, he asked Quraysh to go before the deity and to pray for his sight back. And he felt uncomfortable doing that because of a personal thing. So he came back, said, "Okay, go and pray for the deity. Just say this: that my spiritual master has lost something valuable, and please return it." and he got his vision back. That the deity became, he was able to see again. So there's all these amazing pastimes with him. Madhvacharya also has a lot of pastimes.
I think it was Quresh was the one who actually had a photographic memory.
Oh, yes.
And that's when they went to that ashram up in the Himalayas or something. They found one very specific book that Ramanujacharya wanted, but they wouldn't let him take it.
Right.
So, but Quresh was going through it at night, and he memorized the whole book.
Right.
So when they left, Ramanujacharya was lamenting that we couldn't get the copy, but Quresh said, I memorized the whole thing for you. And then when they got back to Srirangam, he wrote it all out.
Yeah, that kind of commentary, very important commentary. Yeah, thank you.
Photographic memory. Any other pastimes?
Well, the famous one probably about when he was a student of his guru. And now I think that the first guru he had was a Mayavadi, right? Yeah, the first was a Mayavadi, and he became debating against him. And his guru said, "What is this? You're my disciple, you know." But he wouldn't. What happened when did he quit? He must have left him, right?
Tried to kill him.
He tried to kill him.
In the forest.
Right, right. And it was obviously unsuccessful. But then there was a Vaishnava guru who gave him the mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya or something, right? And something it's very secret, you know. You just keep it to yourself. And this mantra will give you liberation. You know, just like Om Namo Vasudevaya or Hare Krishna. So Ramanuja proceeded to get up on a rampart and call out all the townspeople and say, "Listen, I got your mantra that you'll deliver you from birth and death." And he taught him the mantra. And his guru was livid. He said, "What did you do? You're going to go to hell now for disobeying me." He said, "I don't care. You know, if there's a mantra that's efficacious that'll save the people, and I'll go to hell and they can go be liberated." That showed his, you know. Prabhupada told that story in conference to say, "Hey, Hare Krishna, we're not charging $35, you know, that they were charging. It's all free. You can take it. This is what real Vaishnava is."
We can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Ramanujacharya.